Good morning. I'm Ed Langton, a concerned citizen with MississippiHorizons.org, and we're here to talk about a constitutional amendment, an amendment to the Constitution called Initiative 65. And the first thing I want to say is that we have never had any product, medical or otherwise. There's never been medical cola, medical marijuana, medical whatever, put in the Constitution of the state of Mississippi. The Constitution's purpose is more to give the framework for which we have the legislative, executive, judicial, and Bill of Rights. So once something is put in the Constitution like this, it takes away any kind of management by our elected officials and our state laws, because it overrides that, and we take another initiative to try to correct the ills that this amendment has. I will tell you that it's very important, it's critically important that you read a red line of the constitutional amendment that gives in black print the amendment, in red print the complications and disparities with which the wording of the amendment will do for communities in the state, the citizens of the state of Mississippi. Now, I will tell you, some of my friends are for marijuana and some of my friends are against marijuana. And I will tell you that I'm for my friends. And when I get to a friend that's for it and I show them this amendment and they read the red line and see the language in it, they say, oh my goodness, Ed, there's no way we can vote for that. And so that's what I have to encourage, that everyone do that. So we're saying that really, you really need to vote against Initiative 65. Now, the way this came about, wealthy millionaires are trying to establish a new industry, a cartel in Mississippi for marijuana is basically what it boils down to. When people spend $3 million, you can't say they just woke up that morning to be compassionate and provide something medical for people to make them better. We have 4 cannabis-based drugs right now that are FDA approved, and more to come. We have Ole Miss is the only place in the nation where you can grow cannabis to do research in order to provide true medical products. There are 4 right now, true medical products, FDA approved. This amendment says that all a doctor has to do is say that I certify you. They can't give a prescription because there is no prescription. So they will certify you saying you have a debilitating condition. You got headaches, you got whatever. So I certify that you're eligible to get a marijuana card. Now once you get that marijuana card, what people don't realize, there are severe consequences with that. If you're a Section 8 housing person, you can be evicted from Section 8 housing. You go to the so-called treatment center, which is nothing more than a dispensary, to get the marijuana. Medicaid won't pay for it, Medicare won't pay for it, Blue Cross Blue Shield won't, United Healthcare, it's against federal law. So what you're required to do is pay cash, $300-400, let's say. If you have to pay that cash, you don't have it, you then go on the street to buy it in the black market for a cheaper price. What are you getting? Pesticides and whatever in marijuana on the street. The other complication is with law enforcement, and I have letters that we posted from the U.S. Department of Justice and the ATU, I'll call it the back attacks, that the ATU that recently gave a letter in March of this year to the state of Michigan that legalized marijuana, medical or otherwise, and it made it clear to them that if you have a marijuana card, whether you have a concealed permit or not, you are not allowed to carry, or nor are you allowed to receive a permit to buy a firearm. When hunters find that out in this amendment, I think they'll be very concerned. The other thing is they're calling it a fee that's equivalent to the tax rate, 7% today. All of the money that will be paid in fees, which is tax of 7%, strictly goes to the Department of Health. It says in here that you cannot give any excess funds to the general fund There will be no rebate to any cities, municipalities. So the municipalities will be burdened with law enforcement and a plethora of other costs to deal with this. It doesn't limit dispensaries. They can be on just all over the state. In Oklahoma, there's over 2,100 right now dispensaries, and they call them treatment centers, but those people are there just selling marijuana. Furthermore, the products can be smoking it, vaping it, gummies, brownies, and a doctor can certify a below age, a minor, to receive it with the consent of a parent. Now, I wouldn't give that consent. A lot of parents who smoke dope might want to give their consent. Once again, more problems. So the collecting the taxes, which will not go back to the cities. We also have zoning problems, because anywhere that you can have a pharmacy or a commercial zoning allowed, then you can put a dispensary. It has to be 500 feet from a church or a school, existing church or school, not a piece of land where you can build later, the way it's working. That is, once again, another serious problem with this. The counties do not have zoning. Most counties don't. So in a county, you can pretty much put one on whatever corner you want, next to a residence or wherever you might want. The health department has got 11 board members that are appointed, not elected. And the health department listened to the proponents back in January. We listened to physicians and specialists to find out all the pros and cons of this situation. And the health department has come out with an op-ed as well as a resolution saying this is a terrible initiative that should not be put on the Constitution. The health department, once again, being appointed, not elected. You can imagine if $3 million was spent just to get this on an initiative, what will be spent to influence politicians to appoint people that will be marijuana industry people, and this thing will have hands off by everyone else in the state, law enforcement and so forth, to where these people will be in charge of that marijuana cartel in the state of Mississippi. So there is one other website too that's got a lot of information for you, as well as the red line. That's www.stopmspot.com, and of course MississippiHorizon.org. So I encourage you to please get others to read this constitutional amendment and the red line of it, to make sure you know just what this state, the travail that this state will experience if this thing ever passes. And I'd like to introduce Sheriff Mizell to now introduce the other guests and speak. Thank you.
As the Sheriff of Jackson County, I'd like to come out and say that my interest in this is for the citizens of Jackson County and for our youth in Jackson County. Just one of the things just to kind of make note of is what this is going to do is it's going to put another burden on law enforcement, which we don't need. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office right now answers between 2,600 and 2,800 calls a month. We patrol over 274,000 miles and answer all these calls, dealing with all these different kind of problems. We don't have time to ask and go out and get, it's kind of like asking for trouble. We don't have time to do that. Currently, there's also not a roadside test for somebody if we pull them over that's driving erratically. There's not a roadside test like there is for DUI. If you want to arrest somebody for driving under the influence of a narcotic, it's a process that you have to go through with blood draws and those sorts of things. We don't have time to stop everything that we're doing to be able to go and check on a daily, nightly basis, because I promise you, as we have already seen in the past, we have made a number of arrests from people going out to Colorado and bringing back these brownies and some of these other things, and these kids are getting them. Don't think that they're not using them. This is going to put such a strain on our first responders, which are already taxed enough as it is to try to serve the citizens of Jackson County and the great state of Mississippi. This is only going to make it worse. And I'll tell you this, it's going to be such an access now for our kids to get it. And like Ed was saying earlier, there are some parents out there that smoke marijuana. I get it. And we also answer many calls throughout, especially during the summertime when school's out, when there'll be an underage drinking party at a particular house, and the parents have said, I'd rather have my kids here drinking here so I can watch them. If you add marijuana to that alcohol on top of what's already going on, our kids can't take this. They're not prepared for it. I don't care how smart they are in school and some of the great strides that we've made in education. Kids are still kids. And we were all there at one time. And you know, if you start making this so available, I guarantee you they're going to get it. I have seen them come into the emergency room during my time working for the hospital. Kids that have had an overdose or smoked marijuana and it may have something else in it, and they will destroy a room. You know, I'm telling you, this is going to be bad news if this happens. We've got to do everything we can in our hearts and our minds to stop this. And it's not for selfish reasons, it's for the reasons of the kids and our young adults coming up that need us to help them as adults. That's part of us being adults, is we've got to help raise and take care of our kids. Our kids are kids. We were all kids at one time, so you know that there's going to be opportunity out there. If you look at the #1 crime rate in adolescents in Colorado School District, and it's the use of marijuana. Their crime rate has risen in 2017, 18.6%. And drug driving is out there. You know, in Washington, 1 in 5 drivers has been stopped under the influence of marijuana. I'm sorry, 1 in 10. And so, you know, the numbers just continually show us that this is not good for us. And you know, when we have kids that continually and young adults that get involved with this kind of thing, it leads to other things. You know, like he was saying, $3 million is going to be a big influence. Please share this. No, we can't have this. Like he was saying, Ole Miss is the only institution in the country. There are some legal ways that this has helped, but this is not the way to go about doing it. If we change this, put this on the Constitution, there won't be any going back. And I guarantee you this, if we go for this and this happens, the following year they're going to come back for legalization. That's exactly what happened to Colorado, and that's exactly what will happen in Mississippi. So please go out, share this information, do your own research on it. There's tons of information out there, but please go out and do your own research if you don't believe us. So thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce Wayne Rodolfich, who is the superintendent of the Pascagoula School District, who we've had conversation with before, and see if he might like to say a few words. And also one more in just a moment.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to have this platform to discuss the future of our children. We currently deal with multiple legal drugs that are out there now. There's been prescription medication that we've had to deal with from the school district standpoint that children are able to get from their parents' medicine cabinets. We're now dealing with vaping that is supposed to be an alternative to smoking, and now we're finding that vapes are being laced with different types of drugs, and we've had to manage some of those issues within our school districts, and that's not just unique to our district. I was asked to come here today to become better informed about the initiative that is going to be on the ballot. I brought my law enforcement team with me so that we can better understand what some of the ramifications and some of the background is as it relates to that. And so we're here on a fact-finding mission today to find out how we can better protect our children in the event that something like this would pass, or if our children would be detrimentally impacted by this if something like this would pass. So we're here to try and gather as much information as we can, and our ultimate goal is the well-being of our children, who we are responsible for from the time they're in pre-K until the time they go to junior college. That's how far it extends for us in our school district. So we're here to try and find out how we can better protect our children in the Pascagoula Go-Chase School District, and I will be sharing this with fellow superintendents around the state.
Thank you. Dr. Mike Barnett, if you would step forward and maybe say a few words. Dr. Barnett is the pastor at First Baptist Church in Ocean Springs, and I asked him to join us this morning as well.
I think the superintendent said it very well, that the issue is the protection of our kids. Why introduce something that is going to negatively affect our Constitution and the way we do law here in the state of Mississippi? And why introduce something in our society that might have potential for medical relief, as we already have cannabis-based drugs, as has been pointed out? Why introduce something that will harm our children, increase crime on our streets with marijuana, under the influence of marijuana and drugs. And so I stand with the sheriff today and with this coalition and these law enforcement officers to say that this is not good for Mississippi. It's not going to protect our children. It's not going to enhance our culture and our society. There's other measures to bring good things, and this is not one of them. Thank you, Sheriff.
And I'd like to introduce one other speaker that came. Come on up, Anthony. Anthony McCullum is from the Petal area, Sheeplow community, and has been a probation officer and unbelievably community spirited and a man of God. And I'd like for him to address to you what he's seen in the court system with marijuana and his personal experience.
Right, thank you, Ed, Coalition, and Sheriff. I just know that it would be detrimental to our community. That's my biggest concern when I was asked to be a part to try to educate our community. That's what I want to do the next 90 days before we actually go to vote, is to make sure people are aware that this will be detrimental to our community. I've worked with a lot of people the past 30 years of going to the prison, helping people in and out of the system, and I know I've never heard one person over the past 30 years to come up to me and say, hey, I sure am glad I took that hit of that joint when I was 12 or 13 years old. No, it tremendously changed their life, and that's why they ended up serving time. So I want to encourage the community, don't vote for 65. I'm also someone who knows how it is for someone who might need some help from the THC side from a medical standpoint. As Ed has alluded to, there is no medical marijuana. It's just marijuana. And it can have some benefits. And I'm glad, and I don't know if you mentioned it, but 65A, if we are going to be in that position of voting for something, definitely vote no for 65. 65A, for those who are out there, as I said, I'm not for marijuana at all, but for those who may need it for medical reasons, 65A would be the better way for us to approach it. So I stand with you and support this effort 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Ed, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Any questions? Anything?
Okay.
I'll just close by saying, if you do not read the red line, you are doing yourself a grave disservice and a disservice to the state of Mississippi for what consequences we'll experience, and you'll say, I had no idea. Read it, you'll get a good idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.